Well, this is so exciting. Welcome to Defining Success. I'm really excited to introduce you to Lara Hoyles of RCVRI Recovery.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Marion.
Yeah, this is so great. Let's give a quick shout out to Deborah Strugo for introducing us, and definitely has been such a joy getting to know you, and I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read your bio and then we'll jump in. Okay. Lara Hoyles is the co-founder and COO of RCVRI, a mom of four, and a dynamic leader in the wellness and performance space. With a background in design and a career built through administration and operations, Lara brings a unique blend of creativity, structure, and strategic thinking. She co-founded RCVRI in 2019 alongside her husband, Steve Hoiles, Nick Bardetta, and a serial entrepreneur, Trevor Folsom of Investable, helping grow the brand from its beginnings in Australia with 4 studios to international expansion in Canada, most recently Toronto, with plans to continue scaling across North America globally. No small feat.
That's it. That's me in a nutshell.
I mean, there's so many places I want to start. So I think it would be really great to just sort of hand the mic over to you and ask you, Lara, where did you get this passion for business leadership?
Great question. And it's really interesting reflecting back on it, because I think that all of these pieces have really placed together to lead us to where we are now with recovery, and absolutely in the best place. So in short, Steve and I are high school sweethearts. Essentially, we've been together for many, many years. He played rugby professionally, and I've always had my separate career, very yin and yang in our relationship in terms of our skill sets and what we can bring to the table, which I always think is like such a cool dynamic. When he was getting close to retiring rugby, we invested in a franchise in F45 training, as everybody might have known, have had a really interesting growth and whatnot over the last couple of years especially. Actually started with Anytime Fitness and then F45. F45 was always very, was sort of like a safety net. So we always knew we wanted to have kids, multiple kids. We're lucky to have a really supportive, wonderful family. We all live quite close together in Sydney's eastern suburbs. So with the expansion, or actually what we did was a studio relocation with our Coogee F45 location, and where we found an incredible main street corner block location and went into an old BWS, which is like a old big, essentially like a think supermarket size facility. We had 200 square metres spare, and through my husband's sort of own need, as with his past chronic pain and ailments, we absolutely notified there was a real gap in the market around creating a wellness, but performance and proven backed space or offering that was outside of the usual hospital or medical setting, where people could go on the daily and integrate that into their weekly routine. So there was this presumption that we were just like, oh, immediately all of our F45 members will just become members of recovery, you know. Sorry, jumping back to recovery, with the concept, we brought that to good friends of ours, Nick Bardetta, who I mentioned in the bio, and Trevor Folsom, who's a great friend and sort of mentor of Steve's. And they were immediately really excited with the concept. And we founded that in 2019 with this Coogee studio really being the only and sole focus. At that point, it wasn't about multiple locations or at whatnot at that phase, and obviously a really interesting phase of everyone's life because we were then quickly entering the COVID era. So I think that was accidentally one of the best things that happened to us, in the sense that launching and really testing and piloting that, and we were invested at that point. I mean, we'd signed the lease, we committed to, these the fit out and all of these huge pieces of equipment that meant that turning then that business on and off during obviously those lockdown periods was testing, but really gave us great confidence around the potential that the studio had around taking it to different locations. And truthfully, I know we mentioned that there's 4 locations in my bio, so that one's wrong. We've got the new one in Canada, Toronto. We're now at 5.
Yeah.
With plans now to really focus our growth and expansion moving into North America, specifically being Canada and the USA.
Yeah. So, so with recovery, when you have this, if we could just pause for a second and go back to this, to 2019, and you, amazing that you're here to tell the story of this expanding business, having, been in the initial stages of it as we're going into COVID. And I think it's fair to say Australia had famously strict lockdowns as well. So, so a few things. First off, I would just to give all of us, myself included, a full picture here. You have the concept for recovery, you have the space, and you have 4 kids. What ages are your kids at this point?
Yeah, so they would have been, oh my God, it feels like a lifetime ago, say age 13. So we've got 2 teenagers now and 2 in elementary. So they would have been at the time 2, 4, 10 and 12, say. And my mum came to live with us. We lost my darling dad many years ago. So she was, living alone. So there was 7 people in the house, a new business, a gym. We still had F45 that, remember, everybody just had to shut off all of their recurring payments one day and stop paying their staff and work out exactly what that meant moving forward. So I think it's really interesting in these times where at the time, you would know, Marion, you would have experienced it and survived that phase yourself. It's really important to almost step back and get perspective around everything that else is going on. I think that's the thing that pushes us through those moments. It does feel brutal and it does feel really testing, and in those moments of weakness when you're tired or strained or overwhelmed, it's hard to see through the clouds. But I remember just thinking, as long as everybody is happy and healthy, it was literally just one day in front of the other, and that's where you're just kind of taking everything back into basics and almost taking it back to survival mode.
Totally. What a great way to kick this all off, because it's so true. And that's, you have to love how the most powerful statements are always the most simple. And it's just so, one day at a time, and just and really keep, to your point, to keep the perspective, which can be challenging when you have the weight of what you had at that time. That's so much to manage. Now, were you intending to be as involved with recovery as you ended up being?
Yeah, really great question. In short, no.
Okay.
I accidentally fell into the role. And I'm talking, due to this, it absolutely made sense that we totally bootstrapped. We were committed. So it was like, Lara, get in the studio. That involves scrubbing the pools on a Sunday night and sitting behind the desk. I was doing the rostering, overseeing the marketing, all departments, development of the website with the team and hustling and grinding, establishing all of our suppliers while working behind the desk. At the same time, this is all while the kids were at school. So
Yeah.
it absolutely, I think, is one of the reasons why it gave it the chance to succeed, or at least survive that testing period, is because we could kind of scale it back, take it back to basics, you know, not paying me a wage, really being really
right.
just with our expenditure. That was absolutely one of the best things we did.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it's sort of as, you know, it's like a mom and pop shop, right? It's like when you're all doing it as a family, to your point, yeah, okay, I might not be getting paid right now, but you're doing it to support the family business. And it's so beautiful. And especially while your kids are like going through everything they had to go through, that must have been a lot of energy in that house running the business during COVID. Now, your husband, now I'm so curious about this dynamic too, which we maybe, I don't know if we want to dive into it now, but running a business alongside your husband, you know, and how you guys work together and how you, I'm sure, balance each other out in some way. Do you feel that there's a way that you've brought a perspective into the business that may have not been existent had you not gotten involved?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think it's, as you would know, really interesting, and really, it was really needed, bringing I've clearly brought like a bit of a feminine perspective to the energy. And I think that comes through in the relationships with the staff and our studio managers. And don't get me wrong, our co-founders are so excellent, and they're even separate level of expertise in their experience, and what they bring to the table is also really diverse. When it comes to Steve and I, we're super lucky. Like, I'm so proud of what we've built, and it's actually added another level of I think strength and rigor even to our own relationship, which has been really beautiful. And no doubt that wasn't guaranteed. There's the odd time where we don't agree with each other, especially on calls or when there's third-party people involved, and we'll give each other the odd kick under the table. But for most part, 90% of the time, absolutely, where like I can, because we're together so much too, his way of thinking, and particularly because he's out there, say, as the CEO rather, more as the, you know, thinking growth and strategy and expansion, and not just this year's stuff. He's thinking even further down the line. So I'm kind of the one that even has maybe the nous or the ability to pull him in or out, or go, wow, that is a risky one, and or, you know, help support, push through the ones that, you know, have proven legs. Like when I think about, for example, all of the locations and the spaces, the modalities that we are really conscientiously trying to grow our own brand without really trying to look at all of the other players around us. And I feel like this particular industry at the moment, as you might see, is playing out and defining itself right in this very moment. You know, we're getting these tiny little sauna houses that are your plug and play type, you know, clear lights straight off the shelves, and selling it that way, where, sure, that's great, that serves a purpose. The piece in which I think they might be missing, or at least with the gap that we're trying to fill, is creating that human-to-human connection and that community element that you can bring to the wellness setting. And how do you scale those sessions so that you can host and have, you know, 30 to 40 paying customers in the space at any given time? That's where I truly think the opportunity lies.
Yeah. So talk me through, like, explain what it feels like. Like, I would love for you to sort of walk us through, you know, the client journey through recovery, right? What's your average user, and sorry, I'm speaking like app language. What's your average client? And, sort of like if they sign up online and then they go in, like, what's the experience? And also, if you don't mind taking a moment to sort of, explain the layout of the place as well, because I think it sounds so special. And I'd love for anybody listening to this, for all the people who are listening to this, to really understand the experience, because I know it is unique. So
yes, it is. And this is where I think we've really tried to create this level of differentiation between us and other players in the market. So each modality at Recovery is absolutely, so our anchor is always backed by science. We curate and very intentionally select modalities, being hot and cold therapy, sauna, hyperbaric chamber, red light therapy, that have proven, tried and tested science-backed results. Moving to how we create a space that elevates that and creates a welcoming, open, studio where anybody can come. It has been interesting, and how that's evolved, I guess, from Coogee, which we call like Recovery 1.0, and to where we're at now with Recovery 2.0, specifically talking to Martin Place in Sydney CBD and with Canada, Toronto. I think we underestimated how greatly the flow and the definition of the spaces, and then more amplifying the senses, how much that plays into the user experience. So I'll talk to the studios, or at least the flow first. Essentially, you kind of walk in and you've got this really beautiful open reception space, ideally obviously for hydro, and when you've got pools inside a commercial premise, you're looking at like ground floor, really high ceilings. The learnings that we've got to when it comes to hydro management, condensation, that's like another story for another day. Maybe we can talk to that part later.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
Great, because you've got water, steam, you've got hot and cold modalities sitting up beside each other. So there's all lots of lovely situations that could generate there when it comes to mold or blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we've got the reception space. The hyperbaric chamber is phenomenal. It's not, the hard shell ones are not kind of backed in America at the moment, but in Australia, that's probably one of our closest medically graded offering when it comes to, sort of the level of support and rigor that takes from a compliance perspective. The hot and cold therapy are huge plunge baths. So they would be even sometimes as big as what you would see in an outdoor, in a backyard setting. And when we're talking Fahrenheit, so we're at like, God, what's the equivalent? So we obviously use degrees in Australia. You're looking at sort of 10 degrees Celsius and 40 with the contrast. And the reason that we don't call them ice baths is that the data and all of the science coming out at the moment has definitely proven that basically cold plunging at 0 degrees or at freezing actually has no greater benefit to that from 6 degrees to sort of 10, 11 degrees is that kind of magic number. It's a lot safer for the customer. It creates obviously a more enjoyable session. So there's been all of this rigorous fine tuning, even when it comes to the level of degree that we put our saunas and our pools on, how we can fine tune that and really amplify that over the years. Then moving on to the Normatec compression, I haven't mentioned that one yet. You might see those like big, long black boots. They're excellent for lymphatic drainage, reduces inflammation and increases circulation, specifically in the lower body area. And then with the evolution of recovery, we've moved into, particularly at Toronto, red light therapy has been received really well, and PMF, which is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, which is a really interesting one. So again, we're kind of really anchoring back to those science modalities. But we're very, very conscientious to select and curate the modalities that provide really different and varied key benefits. So how do they support the human in different ways, whether it be through reducing stress, inflammation, increasing circulation, or whatever? How do we separate those and almost put them in their own corner?
So do you, thank you for that. I literally can visualize it now. And I'm curious here, do you make recommendations to clients? So if somebody calls and says, I have the constant headaches, I've tried this, I've tried that, do you have specialists? How's that part work?
Really great question. At each studio, we've typically got a specific staffer that is skilled in that space. We have managed to create like a protocol and training and documentation that we've provided for all of our staff. Mm-hmm. So that is part of our rigorous, like our training and our own internal processes, is that we are constantly evolving those and keeping those up to date, because a lot of the data is even changing, as you would know, in front of us, particularly when it comes to female health, aging. We have almost accidentally stumbled across a demographic where we get a lot of clientele that are coming to us, going through chemotherapy or pre or post hip replacements. Mm. This, I think, was the beauty, anchoring back to the year that I spent at Coogee. This almost allowed us to trial and create this open book around, like who is our demographic and who is our customer, and how do we create the ultimate offering for them. And it really is varied.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm so glad you mentioned Coogee, because I was going to ask you had referenced Coogee sort of as Recovery 1.
Yes.
I think that's what you said, right? So can you talk, to go back for a moment, just like, thank you for saying that. That's where you got sort of this, you were able to get a good idea of who your client is, or at least one of them. Can you explain Coogee Recovery 1 and what that was and what your involvement was there?
Yeah. So Steve and I essentially took the lead on that whole design and fit out. We did have architects involved with that particular development, but we hadn't partnered with the guys in North and North, who are fantastic. They're an extension now of our own brand, and they have learnt so much about us over the years, where we can literally look to replicate a recovery space or a recovery, and you think like, so now it's sort of evolved into that wellness concierge offering.
Right.
How do we design and curate and keep amplifying and elevating the recovery experience, whether that be for an external recovery client or for one of our own standalone studios? So sorry, going back to Coogee 1.0, like reflecting on it, and even given that it was 6 years ago, I'm still super proud of the job that we did. Interestingly, it started actually with like a barista, and we had the full-blown coffee machine at the front. So we were thinking, I know. And it's so funny when you actually reflect, I forgot about that part until you even brought that up now. We were presuming that people would come and either have like a coffee or a healthy smoothie before or after. And it was that whole, like they do at Barry's.
Right.
We were like, absolutely, it'll be pumping. So this poor barista is sitting there with their novel, like literally just reading a book per day. We very quickly learnt that a barista or offering at Recovery Coogee was not the best decision. So we very quickly pivoted and moved that coffee machine along. Lucky it was just on lease. And we repurposed that space as the reception area. So there's been they would have to be over 100 learnings, particularly when it comes to even little things like the design of the pools, the allocation of the wet and dry space. We were under the presumption that it would be a 50-50 split. As it turns out, like 60 or 70% of our customers solely coming for the hot and cold, or the cold therapy, the benefits that come from the cold therapy, and that like that dopamine hit that everybody gets leaving that has kind of made that our number one service or modality offering. So if you could design the recovery studio on a flow, it would almost be 2/3 wet space, 1/3 dry. So Coogee's been an interesting one. With that said, last year that specific studio underwent a total redesign and an expansion into the commercial space next door, where the old guitar shop guy moved out, and we went, hey, like, we might jump on that. Very quickly got in touch with the landlord, and now Coogee studio actually offers massage. So it's been a really interesting evolution, and I would say from like a design perspective, Martin Place is really, really amplified in the way that it's like aesthetics is kind of what we really try to anchor it back to around low, very neutral tones, but even the way that we curate the music and the candles or the scents that I'm burning in the background, they get like really carefully selected. And I think they all really I think of them as building blocks on each other that create this ultimate sensory experience for the customer, especially when they're only coming for half an hour.
Oh yeah, totally. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. They're quick visits, right? And you mentioned you've introduced massage at Coogee, correct? And so is this like people giving massages?
Yes. So we've brought in a massage specialist, a masseuse. So she essentially sort of runs those 2 rooms as if they're her own, and they've become like an extension of our own offering. She's really well renowned around the area as probably the eastern suburbs, sort of one of the best sports remedial therapists.
So, wow. So that's a whole other service. Yeah. And is that something you think?
That's more of a new offering, which has been really well received and complements the studio really, really well.
Is that something that I love hearing about Coogee, because it's kind of like, do you kind of consider that also like a testing ground too, a little bit? Like, I'm wondering,
It is. It's definitely worked out that way. And conveniently, our little head office is located next door as well. So it means that all of the founders and anybody that works at a head co level, we're located right there. So the team are right there. They can pop in and out. If it means taking calls in the hyperbaric chamber, it means we can at least like get to enjoy it ourselves every now and then too.
Yeah, that's a plus.
That's a bonus.
Okay, so I'm thinking about you and Steve and working together, and he's an athlete. And athletes have a certain mindset, and it's very sort of like win, right? It's like that's it, win. And if you lose, okay, well, you're going to win next time, right?
Yes.
And it's very I don't want to say black or white.
Sometimes, Marion. That's
I was trying to sort of. You went right in there. Okay. So
dramatically, yes, he is a very thoughtful, driven, like conscientious leader. And interestingly, moving from rugby union as a professional player and playing for, say, the state and the nation, now he's coaching. His evolution of his mindset, I think, would arguably, time would say that it gets great over time. But his ability to be able to transfer those skills to the boardroom, I think, is where we are seeing this greatness now. And this is where the rigor and maybe pushing through the grit, where I've always got my he's always got his dad and his CEO hat on, but I feel like, it's easy when I've got my mum hat on and life and I'm always juggling everything else. He'll be the one that sort of like creates these resolves and resolutions, and we're always thinking, planning ahead to kind of map whatever that next step is, particularly when we're troubleshooting issues or, constraints in this founder, right? In that we are absolutely in the messy middle right now around, this wonderful, proven, tested model. We've taken the plunge and moved over to America with our 12 suitcases and 4 children and backed ourselves on a dream. So it's like, there's no turning around now,
Yeah, so here we are. Yeah, so now here you are. And I would love, if we can, sort of I'd love to hear about how you came to this decision, which I know is very difficult to do. It's not as simple as, well, we sat down, we had coffee, and we decided let's do it. But it's a big decision. It's a brave one. It's bold. It's incredibly inspiring. So, and your whole family came over here. What got you to make that decision, and how's it going?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're literally sort of right in the middle of it right now. Yeah. It was very obvious that growing recovery and absolutely growing recovery and establishing recovery in Australia as a leading performance supplier, provider and offering is still one of our main goals. And I'd like to see that we're getting there. Interestingly, the space is absolutely saturated with competitors that are popping up on every block, and they are different and varied in their offering. But when it came down to the basics, and we did a lot of research going back to demographics and population study, and Australia's at 22 million people and America's at 320 million. Right. So it kept coming back to, where is our chance for success or our chance for growth greater than where we are currently sitting? And it was very clear that, and so touching back on Steve's recovery experience, we'd spent 2021 and 22 in America where Steve was coaching another team. So we'd lived in LA for 2 years, and it was quite shocking, but there really weren't any, living in LA, really close to the airport, we were under the presumption that there would be wonderful wellness offerings or similar to that around. And there's a couple around LA, but really nothing that was similar to recovery. So that continued our plan and thought process on what the next best steps would be for the brand. And it's been, I would say, the last couple of years have been super, super interesting around, sorry, my printer's starting for no reason. Okay. Really focusing on creating a recovery ecosystem. So our initial focus was obviously on studios and studios alone. So we quickly jumped from Coogee to then Cronulla and Manly in 2020, and then to Martin Place, which is that sort of most recent one in Sydney CBD that I mentioned, and then more recently Toronto, which only opened around 6 months ago. So from there we were like, how do we create this entire offering? And that kind of moves to the Hydrate product, even though I've got here, I don't even think I mentioned that to you. So we have developed 2 flavors. It's sodium, potassium, magnesium and calcium that just supports that ultimate or ideal hydration offering. We have these for sale, as part of our retail line in the studios, and sell them separately too. We then also developed the recovery mobile unit, which I haven't even mentioned yet, which is essentially a recovery studio on wheels. And that came through a gap or a need to be able to sell or hire in this wellness offering as part of an activation. So think the end of an ultra or a marathon. We've had it at the end of City to Surf. And then, that leads us then to how do we sell this into mining sites or regional areas or spaces where, you've got staff or people based remotely that wouldn't have otherwise access to wellness, and how do they, create a staff, staff benefit.
I'm so glad you brought up the mobile unit. Excuse me, because I love that. I think that's genius. And how do you feel that's something you'll replicate in the States? I've been curious about that. I've been wanting to ask you that. Yeah.
I feel like the States absolutely is such a market for it. And we have started looking at designs and suppliers over here. She's a big beast, the one in Australia. She's gone and travelled up and down the coast and is huge. So there are a couple that are based around, and a lot of the time you'll see just a sauna or a moving sauna on wheels. So they exist, and there's quite a few based around Australia. Hoiles, I believe, is one of the only ones that has 2 cold plunges, an integrated shower, and a 7-person sauna in the corner, and it folds out onto itself with 3 big arms, where the idea is you can then activate, say, bring a DJ on, sell hydrate, and it can actually host, say, like 30 people on the actual unit at any given time.
That's so great. It's so great. How long have you had, excuse me, how long have you had that?
The mobile unit is probably only about 8 months old. So that's been really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So we're really trying to work out where she sits amongst all of this and how we place that. So there's so many ways that the mobile unit can be utilised.
Totally. And, now that I see you have this product, and is this the first of more to come, you think?
Yes, I definitely see an evolution of hydrate for sure. When we talk about what the future looks like for recovery, I absolutely think that moving into, as you would know, that medical concierge space is so interesting right now. And I think we've proven ourselves as thought leaders, and at least as, leaders in the industry, to be able to evolve to, I say, partnering with Bloodworks. How do we integrate with syncing that health data in with recovery users, so that we can actually track and measure these outcomes, and then keep creating these goals for ourselves and for our customers.
It's so exciting. And it's like, hearing you speak about it, you do have such a clear vision for the directions that recovery can go into. What I love about what you're sharing too is that it's very clear that you're also aware that it could change. There could be some pivots along the way. Yes. There already have been, it sounds like, right? And you just learn, go, build. Yeah.
That's the critical part. Like, we have really got to a point where we've had to shift our mindset and really be nimble and keep looking not just to everybody around us and the trends, but, to the P&Ls, and really test and try and measure what is working, where is this space going, where with a reduced or a relatively small capital and executive team, there's where do we put our energy and thought and resources into, because it's so easy to get distracted by the things that won't provide the return, I think. Particularly at this point, when you're all kind of scrambling and looking around at each other. When I think about even the structure, and when you've got a team of only sort of 5 or 6 people, I'm talking at like a head co level. Our studios clearly run and they operate, and they've really proven and tested themselves. How do we evolve and take the brand to the next level without taking our eyes off the prize, and without slipping up by not focusing on what's working at the moment too? So maybe it goes back to that a little bit as well. It's so easy to keep chasing the next thing, right?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it really is more than ever because there's just so much innovation happening.
Right.
And clearly you know better than I, so much of the innovation doesn't really have substance to it, but it's the next shiny object, right? It's so
Right.
exciting. And I really commend you and admire you for being able to always come back to keeping your eyes on the prize and what's working. And that's actually, I have so many questions, but staying on this, speaking of staying focused, um, what do you consider the prize? Like when you say keep your eyes on the prize, I know where my mind goes when you say that, but I'm wondering what you're thinking.
I'm so glad you said that because I haven't even touched on next where this is almost, and through the evolution of our own studios, and I think through the ability to be able to really prove ourselves and test ourselves, we're getting to the point now that, how do we integrate this with like wellness hospitality? How do we get savvier and smarter with our, with our commercial deals? Because we can't, we want to be in Culver City in the center and but it's not sustainable for us to be there on $1 million lease per year or whatever that may be, right? Which is what we need. So what we're really trying to map out now and strategize is like, that hospitality evolution. How do we partner with somebody like, Crown Hotels and Resorts and Intercon and these top tier, brands that we see, particularly in the Nordic regions. And actually going back to the concept of recovery even, it was almost through a holiday at the Fairmont in Banff when this sounds so wanky, but where there was a hot and cold plan, an indoor and an outdoor pool in the Alpines, which was just incredible. And Australia has obviously nothing like that. So the dreamer in Steve was going, how can we create something like this where we've got, indoor hot and cold pools that are available for people, in every suburb. So, but that takes us then to like really making it experiential. And how do we, obviously all the data now is saying 1 in 3 people will book their hotel specifically based on its wellness offerings. I think we're all a bit now that, having a shitty little gym with a runner and a spin bike in the corner is just not going to cut it anymore. How do we like create these really beautiful and meaningful experiences that amplify the guests' stays? So we've had some really interesting discussions even with some folks here in LA. They've got the assets, right? They've got these beautiful, fantastic, beautiful assets. A lot of the time they've got 100 or 200 square meters sitting right there off the back of the kitchen. It's like, right, how do we like repurpose that and fit that out to, because, off the back of our learnings after the last 6 years, we can, so we have moved into Powered by Recovery, which is another arm of the business, which I haven't even mentioned yet. And that's in partnership with our fantastic designers that I mentioned earlier on, which is essentially a start to finish wellness concierge design solution.
That's smart.
So that has been a really, really good one for us because it's, we've got the ability to tailor and curate these design solutions for, so think like really, really large gym facilities, hotels, boutique hotels especially, and then the larger ones and that whole retreat space, like your larger Six Senses type, like that's where I see that future evolution going into. How do we partner with somebody like that to bring all of our learnings across to somebody that's obviously got the allocated budget and space, and then more importantly, the clientele that can support it.
Yeah, and the need to serve their clientele, right? I mean, you're solving an issue for them. You're giving an answer to it takes a lot of the pressure off, and you have such a well-established brand I especially love that, you are now leaning into really even better, not you already have, but even better curating the experience so that you get all the touch points, right? And to think about a luxury hotel and a space powered by recovery, and you walk in and you're instantly transported there, right? That's just so fantastic to think about. And, we should talk after because I can think of a bunch of hotels. I'm sure you've already been in touch with all of them, but man, there are so many that could use. They have, to your point, you go to these places paying so much, and they have these, rooms that feel like, was this utility closet? And what am I doing here?
And truthfully, like from a health and compliance perspective, like plugging in a sauna and putting in a residential style plunge bath it's just simply risky, and it's not sensible these days. The repercussions that can come from like even talking about, oh my God, I haven't even talked about the product yet. The chiller that we developed off the back of seeing the need for a reliable, tried and tested chiller that supports obviously the cold pool specifically, or the hot and cold pool, and having that inbuilt filtration system that is constantly sensing and checking the water and drip feeding in the pH and all of the relevant chemicals, so that from a sanitation perspective, all of our pools are kept compliant. I only learnt yesterday there's a very, I won't name names, very big brand in Canada that apparently do not test their pools. Like they don't get tested.
I just,
Wild.
It's gross. And I can't, I have been to so many places where I wouldn't step foot into some of what they're offering. So I can imagine. I'm not surprised to hear that. I do feel I think that you'll agree. I feel like there's been so much over the last couple of years, and there's just, it feels it's going to filter out a bit over the next like 2 to 3 years. The cream's going to rise to the top, right?
I hope so.
I think so. It feels that way, at least for, at the very least for the physical experiences, right? And Anyway, back to you. I wanted to take a second because you just dropped a lot that you guys are. Oh, and then there's our product, and you have a lot going on. And what I love about this story is that, go back way back when, and Lara, you went to university, right? I believe.
Yeah.
What were you studying?
I studied design. So, like entertainment design. I'm the creative girly. I loved art. In a perfect ideal world, if it wasn't about money, I would have like a gallery, and I love creating, and I love curating, which I think anchors back so beautifully to the brand. And with recovery, I'm always looking at every corner from an aesthetic perspective and how we can amplify that. If people are intentionally spending part of their day, and we keep talking about the third space, and we're hearing that, right? They've got home and they've got work. How can I create the most optimal environment for our customers to be able to come spend their precious time with us? Because I'm truly I am very conscientious and really grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
To be able to serve them. We have to think of it that way.
Yes, absolutely. It's so true. And that, going back to that, the eye on the prize, it's almost like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm hearing that's your prize, right? Your client.
Yes. It's the trust, it's the recognition, it's the loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've earned that now. Coogee has proven that, especially this is being what do we call it sometimes, the ugly cousin. But at the moment, she's sounding like the eldest daughter. But Coogee, totally. We've got recurring members that have been there for 4 or 5 years and have never left. So
That's amazing.
I'm truly so, and it's like, honestly, it means so much, even those words even coming from you, hearing that adoration, because during, the entrepreneurial phase and being through right in the gritty part now, that is like super, super testing. And at least once a week, I think about like, oh God, maybe I should just get a normal job. What would I look like in corporate land right now? Because it is that I can feel myself changing in this role, and it is pushing me to evolve as a leader and as a person, and even how as I show up as a mum. So that's probably been almost one of the accidental outcomes that's come from all of this too. I'm getting a little bit sentimental there, but I had to throw that.
It's a great outcome. And, I just think that it's so important to always keep that in perspective. So it's great that you're able to, because it enables you to sort of see the impermanence of things and to remember that you're always evolving. Because the minute, I think, at least I feel, the minute that you lose that perspective is when it just stops working. It doesn't feel right.
And that's when you stop, or when you get stuck. That is the problem, right? That means you're not evolving.
Yeah. So, okay, and then to get personal for a moment, how did you meet Steve?
Oh, we were like high school sweethearts. He was my year 12 formal date. We'd been friends for quite some time, which was really good. So super funny guy. He's just a joy to be around. And we've been together since I was 18. We just had our 18th wedding anniversary just yesterday, actually. So
congratulations. That's so great.
And we've got 4 beautiful children, like I said, 2 of them in high school and 2 in elementary. So they're navigating school in America and showing up like total legends. So that's been really inspiring as well. I think we maybe underestimate, especially having to work from home, and I'm taking calls in the car. I have to be super thoughtful with how I spend my time. So my car, my driving time and my taxiing time is also super, super valuable. So I accidentally even love they're sitting in the car quiet, and they'll ask questions about the business, especially our 9-year-old who's super, super savvy. We call her the future CEO. So she asks questions about the business all the time, around how things are going, around how projects are tracking, or they'll even make suggestions around what decisions we should make. So, that's been really nice to watch as well. So hopefully that pays off for them throughout their lives.
That's cool. So that's kind of was, thank you for that. Cause it's they're a part of it. They're your team, right? So I love that. I love the thought of you being on a call with them in the car, and they know to be quiet for a few minutes because it's an important call, but they're listening. They're taking it in. That's really cool.
As in boss mode, they're hearing my change in tone. And back to even the franchising, obviously this led us from franchising or from fitness into wellness. It was probably only just over a year and a half ago, we obviously saw the decline or the change in the F45 brand, which led us to rebranding F45 to Strong. I haven't even mentioned that too. So that took place in, what are we now, 2025? That must have been 2023. And that was a very testing process, particularly not as a trainer. I'm not an instructor. I'm an operator. I can come in and assist and lead and guide and help make decisions. And so rebranding to Strong Pilates, which again, really check it out if you haven't already. Fantastic brand around how they've placed themselves in the Pilates space, which is clearly booming at the moment. But really sort of differentiating themselves with the reformer. So we have the Coogee location there, which is doing really well. So that's been really wonderful too, around overseeing and operating that business as an operator and seeing what's working there, and really trying to be mindful about how I can translate that into the recovery studio, whether it be, certain language on the website or the touch points, the booking system, the up download. So always trying to think about that customer experience and how that flow goes has been good. And having sort of eyes across another brand at the same time too.
So the F45 that you rebranded into Strong, which you went from, and which is Pilates, right? It's all Pilates.
Pilates.
I'm just curious, because that's like a major shift, right? And I'm curious how you made the decision to turn it into Pilates.
Steve's instinct was pretty spot on in that. We could almost see that truthfully now that I reflect on it, probably 3 months before we made the decision to change over. We had a fantastic team. We had a really loyal customer base. There's obviously some idiosyncrasies with heavy weights. We had residential above. There was a few things that were pointing towards change, and we'd seen this 10-year cycle with F45 Coogee. It was feeling really old and a little bit dated. Evolution was definitely not happening, talking from a brand perspective. So that was brutal. I was really, really honest and transparent with my staff and was like, guys, this is what's happening. I was very aware they have lives, they have rent to pay. So I lost them pretty quickly. That was brutal. That was a really testing year for me. I was sometimes even dressed like this, having to be in the studio and running classes because trainers weren't showing up. So, when it gets towards that awful end point where people knew we were closing, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for everybody. And although they understood that it was needed, it was still, change is testing, right? And I think it really tested us. And here I was in my slacks and suits as corporate girly, literally selling weights to our members for $1 a kilo. It was brutal, so brutal, and character building. But here we are, Marion. It's another lovely part of the chapter that I truly think, I don't know, and it brings this perspective back. It keeps bringing it back to that where you got to I shifted my mindset around. It's probably unrealistic to think that you're going to have this constant growth. That trajectory will not always be on the way up. It's this constant push and pull, regardless of factors that are in or out of your control, that really have to make you step back and be nimble and be agile. But this is where Steve's mindset, like I said, annoyingly at times, comes in. Selling robes for $1,000. I'm selling them on Facebook Marketplace while I was it was so not cool. But here we are. So Strong's been fantastic. We'll look to do some more locations with them. They're a really wonderful team. Even my most recent visit to Australia, I attended the Strong conference. That brand planning some growth in America too. So
great.
Yeah, it's a cool space to watch.
Yeah, that's thanks for sharing all that, because I'm glad we went into that a little, because hearing you having to have gone through that really it explains and makes me appreciate even more what you're doing now, because entrepreneurship, that's the reality. What you just described, what you went through, there's amazing, there's the amazing side of being an entrepreneur that's wins, and it can be difficult, but it's so rewarding. But when it's hard, in the human way, it's really hard. And so I can imagine that was very difficult for you, not just selling weights, but having to let down people who, they're like I don't like saying they're like family, but they are, in a way. Having gone through that. So it's,
have to go through it again.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's really impressive that you were able to pick up the pieces and just keep going.
We were super lucky with how we launched and how the eastern suburbs and the Coogee community took to Strong. We've got a fabulous leader there now in Lily.
Right.
And I think this is where the dynamic, and particularly with us working remotely, what I really like to think is just enabling them and making them an extension of myself, but not people that work below me, is the key to really getting it right. It's letting them make the decisions and letting them make the mistakes as well, because ultimately it doesn't matter. The realistic thing is that I can't be everywhere at once, but also I'm not going to be making the right decisions all the time too. So I like to think that in that sense that we're all, that she's enabled and able to make decisions and thrive and grow the business as if it were her own as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. What a story. And, again, like, I feel that now, hearing even more of what you've been through and what you're building, I really am very much so enamored by the work relationship you and Steve have. Like, I see it now. I really get it now after hearing all of this. There's clearly a great balance that the two of you experience together.
Yeah, I think, thank you for saying that. That's really nice. And I don't get to think about it a lot, but saying it like that, it has created this lovely layer of admiration and adoration between each other. So through this change and testing times and seeing each other potentially evolve and, seeing each other at our best and worst moments gives us the ability to go, oh, I'm really proud of them for getting through that, or I'm proud of them for how they handled that really testing situation, particularly at the moment when we're, in a new country trying to grow a new brand that doesn't exist yet, where we don't have the brand presence, but we've got the dream and we've got the proven record, elsewhere and in Australia and in Canada. Like, how do we translate that and sell that into the next American investor, hopefully?
Yeah. Here we go. It's happening, and you're in it. you're doing it
right now. Yeah.
It's very exciting. So where, like, right now, today, what do you see, what are you projecting for like the next 2 to 3 months? What's sort of your priority right now?
Yeah, great question. So current focus is absolutely to continue focusing on our existing assets and really focusing on profitability. Each month, I'm really sort of focusing on all of our processes and procedures and operations from the back end, because it's so easy to take your eyes off that when you're stuck in the day-to-day and the resourcing is thin. So making sure that that's evolving and the staff are in on the dream and really including them on the process. And that's even at a studio level as well. So the next 3 months for us is really anchoring a bit of a growth plan moving into 2026. We are right in the middle of a Series A capital raise that's taking place out of Australia. So that's kind of playing out right in front of our very eyes. So that's been really interesting and definitely one of the sort of first experiences to this level that I've been through. So I'm learning a lot through that process. But we've got a wonderful team and a wonderful guy in Matt leading that raise there. So off the back of that, it's more about securing and proving and continuing to grow the revenue at a studio level and sort of fine-tuning the plans around the mobile unit, the activation, what that looks like with Hydrate, expanding into new flavours, and then more importantly, off the back of the cap raise, that will determine next studios or locations yet. Separately to that, we are always continuing in these powered by or separate locations. So they're obviously can be labelled or not labelled recovery. And that's through hotel, concierge, large gym, scale, wellness offerings.
Yeah. So yes, you do offer white label if they want that. I personally would think that I love it powered by recovery, though. I think that's so great, especially with you and your experience. The user's experience is really so great. Okay, so you're busy.
Yeah.
You've got a few things to do. And of course, this is all while you're raising your family in a new country,
Right.
which seems to sound like it's going pretty well. And your kids clearly are, they
They're
seem to just go
resilient.
along. They get it. Yeah, they
They're
clearly
resilient.
get it.
Which is cool.
They're
Yeah. Yeah, we're
yeah,
very lucky.
they're on team recovery.
That's team recovery.
It's so great. And so I did want to ask you a few questions that I'm just super curious about because it's crazy to me because we've covered so much, but it's been not that much time. I mean, you've really built quite a brand and it's been 6 years?
6
Is that right?
years. Yeah, 6 years this year. Thank you. That means a
Wow.
lot. It's hard to know what's long or not. When I think about what I did before this, it honestly feels like a decade ago. But when I think about the potential that recovery's got, and when you think about the effort and the time and the money it takes to get there, I can see it, I can place it. I'm just looking forward to it evolving.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Me too. So and actually going back one more time before, sorry, I keep going back, but I'm just so intrigued. You met your husband, you guys got married, and he was a rugby player, yes, because you were high school seniors, rugby player, and that must have been, rugby's badass.
It's cool, huh? It's like
cool.
American football, but with no padding. So
no padding.
With the growth, anyway, that's like another story for another day again. The potential for the growth of rugby in America, I think, is super, super great because the spectacle factor that it brings to people here, which everybody I think is super intrigued about, is really great. He's a wonderful leader. He was a great player. I think he's actually even a better coach. So that's cool to watch.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about making rugby a little bit more of a accepted spectators and sport here. It's really interesting. Yeah, that is another conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think there's space for that. Actually, it's an interesting thought.
Check out a women's rugby game as well. That's another. They're amazing. Like wonderful. It's at the Olympics. You've got 7 and 15 aside. So anyway, I don't want to take up too much of this call with that.
I have to check that out. Women's rugby. Yes. Excuse me. All right. So you guys, you're married. He's a rugby player, and then at what point? And what were you doing that whole time while he's playing?
So we briefly touched on, we were sort of together. I worked in publishing for a couple of years. So this is where the design element was coming. So I studied design, went into publishing. I then had a year or two off and had Evie and Archie. They're our 15 and 17-year-olds now. We lived in Canberra for some time with Steve and rugby, and he captained there. So that was wonderful. That then led me to some really cool administrative and operations style roles in Canberra. Then I worked for a charity in Sydney called Ability First Australia, and that was really where I could sort of nail and sort of truly get into my role as governance and operations manager. So that was fantastic. So there's been quite a few different learnings through those roles that then, sort of accidentally led me to landing or just working the role at Recovery. It started as Recovery, truthfully, to start with, in terms of RECOVERIE. That was our first brand. We also rebranded as well only a couple of years ago. So still spoken Recovery. But for trademarking purposes, we decided to rebrand to Recovery, RCVRI, abbreviated. So, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. I guess, the level, the skill set in which that has, sort of able to bring to the table has been varied, but probably the biggest blessing, particularly when you're talking about, entrepreneurship and ownership of a label. I'm like overseeing the whole marketing strategy, HR department, rostering all of the studios, and the guys kind of take care. I'm very much involved in it, but they're sort of thinking growth and capital strategy. I'm sort of always thinking about everything on the ground,
Right.
at the studio level. So that is a lot. It's a lot at the moment, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, I have, thanks for all that, because it's great to hear about your background, and clearly that led you, it gave you all the experiences that you now bring to the table. And it's also really great to hear how you, because again, I sorry to keep harping on this, but you guys are married. So I think it's really cool to hear how you very clearly know your roles. You've kind of alluded to that a few times. And I think that that's got to be, to me at least, I'm hearing how that's really got to be an important part if you are, in a relationship with somebody you're doing business with. I think that's got to be kind of an unspoken rule. Like,
Yes,
obviously it's going to cross over, but.
You're right. The differentiation in the responsibilities, I think, is absolutely critical to letting each other own in that tire section. And like I might have touched on before, whether we totally agree with each other at any given moment is unrealistic too. And that's kind of beside the point. We're still really conscientious to treat each other separately, but we obviously know one another well enough now to understand each other's drivers and motivators, strengths and weaknesses, and sticking points to know that, I don't know. I guess we're lucky. We're really lucky in that point. And that same thing goes with our other co-founders as well, in Nick and in Trevor. So, and truthfully, I've back to Nick. I've known Nick. He's a good friend of ours, and I've known him for, God, what are we at now? Probably 25 years as well. He was at the brother high school to the high school I was at as teenagers.
Yeah. So that even speaks volumes to, this, obviously you have to trust the people you're working alongside.
In partnerships with one co-founder, in friendships with another co-founder, and then in mentorship with the other co-founder. So it's pretty
really
cool.
Awesome. That's awesome.
But this is where this transparency and raw honesty and truthfulness and vulnerability that we bring to the table is probably really critical. I know is really critical at this point to being the thing that pulls us through these not challenging, can be challenging and not so challenging times, but that's been the thing. When you really get to know somebody, it means that you can be vulnerable with them and, understand that when big something has happened or a project has fallen over or whatever it may be, we can all understand where each other's heads may be at just because we know each other so well.
So great, so important, and so great. Yeah. Congratulations on that. I know you say it's lucky, but it's a little more than that. And it's great that you have such a fantastic foundation to the business. Here's a question for you. I'm wondering what would be your advice to somebody who has an idea for a business and is, looking to go out on their own, has this concept and is, unsure as to whether or not they should start a business on their own? Now, I know that's a big question, but I have a feeling that you'll have something really insightful to share.
That's a really great question. And I think, especially talking with my, female hat on, it's so easy to sit or just not action these concepts that we might have or, not take it anywhere. I would like to think that if anybody had access to a friend or a mentor or even, like we're seeing people online, really trying to use other people's experience around us and
Mm-hmm.
really trying to understand people's stories and maybe get those learnings around what worked and didn't work for them and trying to replicate that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's obviously it's such a tricky one because it depends. We were lucky that we came together, as a group. And like I said, with such varied experiences and whatever, I do admire those people that, when you see people that go out on their own, and it must feel so bold, particularly doing it solo.
Yeah.
So the biggest strength that we've got is that we're doing it together as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the resources online around the podcasts and books and
Yeah.
tutorials and stuff like that, I think are just golden these days. Like, even to think where the spaces come in terms of content online and free and accessible has just obviously moved mountains in the last sort of decade or so.
Totally. My gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting too, like what you just said, because, it's sort of the catch-22, because if you have partners, you really have to be aligned on what you're trying to do. And that doesn't always, doesn't always happen. And,
Yes.
and that's such a key, because if you're by yourself, that what it is that you want to do, right?
Correct.
So there's no questioning that.
Run your own race, you can make your own decisions, and you're the one that's taking your own risk, I guess.
Right,
This
which also could be the issue.
really comes into play around really being super honest.
Yes.
And raw with each other around, because it's so, and I've seen this before in our leadership calls when we're making big decisions around next steps or big deals, or it's so easy to hold back because you don't want to be the disruptor, right? It was only this year, as a female, what am I, 42, that I was actually told, like, it's actually okay to challenge people. I actually said to her, we were doing some business coaching, I was like, that's the first time somebody has actually said that to me. When you think about how everything about entrepreneurship, in a way, I guess, feels against the grain. It's gone against particularly coming, from like a Catholic girls' high school. You appease, smile, you agree, you nod. So you go, you always agree with authority. So how do we shift that mindset and justify and substantiate our thinking, but also be able to mitigate it and work through it together? Because it's like what we might be thinking mightn't be on par with where the business is at, or how do we come to that alignment? But maybe it's it's also realistic to think that we won't always be on constant alignment too, and to be okay with that. I think it's important to watch as a leader as well.
Yeah, I think you sort of sticking on this honesty. I think that really is what it comes down to, right? Yeah, even if you're in business by yourself, you have to be honest with yourself, and if you have partners, you have to be honest with your partners, all of it. So it's really, thank you for that. That's really powerful. Good stuff. Okay,
Thanks.
2 more questions. I know I'm sorry, we're getting here.
Don't apologize.
Okay,
this is fun.
it's the best. What would you share as, and you kind of have alluded to a few, but I'm just curious what's top of mind as one or two just big mistakes that you have learned from?
Big mistakes. There have been many, Marion. I mean, when, you think about, the evolution of the brand and the partnerships, I don't regret any of it, because it's really interesting thinking back to your mindset or your access to what you know at the time, and your resources and your contacts and your network is all that you have. But when you think about a big one would obviously be in entrepreneurship, is perhaps we underestimate the relationship that we have with all of our third parties. So think agency, digital marketing, all of those people that align with you. And it's only when I really try to think of them as an extension of our own team. They understand our brand and our drivers and not just our strategy, but the evolution of not where it's going next month, but where's it going in 6 months and 12 months? And how are we reflecting that in our collateral and our marketing and our photo shoots? And, oh my God, I sound like Meghan Markle. But that where we are at now with
you do not sound like Meghan Markle.
with our digital marketing agencies and our design team, that is a really, like, that's a special, it's a relationship, and it's a really good bond that we've got with them now. We can call with them on WhatsApp. I can pick up the phone at the equivalent of 6 o'clock on a Sunday or on a Friday night, and they will answer. Like, so I'm really proud that we've got to that point, but maybe that's got to the point where, you know, we've sort of given the brand time to evolve and prove itself. And this is the same as the staff. I haven't really touched on them much during this call today, but it's given them time to be able to buy into a brand that they can see has got potential as well. Like, I'm really even proud of the staff retention that we've got at most of our studios. Most of our casual staff, even as uni students, have been with us for like 3 and 4 years. And they've started as a casual on a Sunday, and now they're assistant manager or whatever it may be. So that has been fantastic, because they are the ones that are having the face-to-face interactions with our beautiful members and our clientele. So perhaps we really sort of underestimate how critical that is too, as to, you know, the people you're picking, they cannot be hungover or dusty on a Sunday morning behind the desk. That is not reflective of the brand. So I'm really proud of kind of what we're able to hold and retain at that level too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know, thanks for mentioning third-party partnerships. I do think that's something that kind of does get overlooked, and you can learn the hard way with that one, where you go, oh, right, oh, they don't get it. I thought they did. Oh,
year if you've been with, like, and it's hard to articulate when you've got that, when you're missing that alignment, isn't it? When you're like, oh yeah, they did the website, but it's not truly reflective of how I see the brand right now. And you feel like you're nitpicking if it's not quite the right font, or it's not the right tone, even when it comes to brand evolution and how we place all of that. We've migrated booking platforms from Mindbody, which totally own the space, to Hapana. I didn't even touch on that before. I know we were talking about the customer experience, which I didn't quite get to, but that has been a huge win for us around really partnering with a tech platform. It's actually, ironically, at a similar growth phase that has the ability to grow with us, which
that's great.
Ultimately, I see that being the host for our, this is another thing I haven't touched on, our recovery protocols. So I really want to build out a library of, guided meditation, breath work.
Oh, cool.
Emotional support, so that our members have access to, recipes and structures and modality protocols that can then support them at a servicing level when they're there having their sessions.
Cool. Wow. That's another one. Okay. That's super cool. Wow. Yes. Yes, you're totally right. The whole thing where you feel like you're nitpicking, and it feels, that's just such an important relationship. I'm really glad you mentioned it, because I do think it gets overlooked often. And just to reiterate, because I think it's so important, it does get overlooked often until it's too late sometimes, and you go, right. And we're not even mentioning you're paying for it. So it's a tough one. So
exactly.
It's really important to remember the importance of those, because sometimes you can go, oh, I don't have to worry about that now. But you just need to keep your eye and make sure that is the way the relationship is what you need it to be. So thank you for that. That's great advice. Okay, so the final question. Here we are, Lara. Thank you for this. This has been incredible. And I can't imagine what you're going to answer to this, because you have had so many successes of varying degrees and different sorts in your life, and you're only just beginning. But at this point, I need to ask you, I'm dying to ask you, how do you define success?
Firstly, I'd like that such kind words, and I'm so humbled being on the podcast with you, particularly with your level of experience. So I just truly wanted to say thank you. Success for me, especially at the moment, this is I've been stuck and going round and round on this question for some time, but thinking about the brand and what we've built and me as a person and as a mother and the role that I play as really keeps anchoring me back to success would be creating an experience or filling a gap and creating a thing for people, which is what we're doing now, in which amplifies, helps, aids their life for the better, or at least just leaving something positive that my kids can see. So I think, like I said to you, being around them and taking these calls has been, and them getting to see us on this journey is really motivates them, hopefully in a subconscious way that we may not even be aware of yet. So if we can keep going on this trajectory, and I know we'll have our ebbs and flows, success would be creating a top tier wellness brand, and especially establishing in America that we can then sort of hand on or sell to the next big firm or group to then take it to the next level. I'm very aware of my capabilities and strengths and what the team can do, and I think that recovery has got some really amazing potential, especially in the market at the moment.
Wow, fantastic. This is, thank you. That was great. And I'm so excited to watch you grow. I'm so happy to know you. I'm so grateful to Deborah again for this introduction. And I'm so excited to watch recovery grow and seeing you at the helm. It's all so fantastic. So congratulations on all of your success to this point.
Thank you so much for the kind words. It's so nice.
And thank you for doing this. And we'll clearly be in touch. This is amazing. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you, Marion.
Oh my gosh, wait, before I forget, where do we find you?
RCVRI on Instagram, RCVRI_AU for the Australian page, and RCVRI_CA. And our website is www.rcvri.co.
Great. Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you, Lara.
Thanks, Marion. It's been a joy.